chat this week speaking about startups and pivots. Yeah, where I'm here with one of our really top mentors, Robin, and we're about to launch into our discussion for small businesses on how to pivot or start up a new business. I'm really excited to be here with you. And also really excited that a lot of participants from Mentor Hotline supported by FNB. So welcome to this live chat, and we're going to have fun. So Robin and I have been, we haven't exactly been polishing some jokes, but we're certainly here to have as much fun as we can, because if we have fun, you're going to have fun as well. So Robin, won't you do me a favor and just give a little bit of an intro as to your background? So what I know is that you've had a long experience in IT and in EdTech, and that you are an accomplished entrepreneur in your own right, as well as being a mentor. But maybe you just want to give a few minutes of introduction, just so that everybody has a context as to who we're speaking to.
Thanks, Kathy. Okay, so as far back as 1985, we started one of the first computer schools in KZN and organically grew it. And when I say we, I had a partner. And if I've got a tip for startups, it's that. Find a partner who can do things that you can't. So we established the school, we grew it very successfully. We sold it after 11 years to what was then Coopers and Librant. And part of the sale was that we had to work with them for a couple of years, just as a transition to pass on the skills. So at the end of the 3 years, to be honest, corporate world, not for me, started my own consultancy, primarily in ICT field, but very much focused on developing people. That's my passion. Worked on very large projects, national governments. Yeah, fascinating stuff. Lots of things, wrote books on computers in an attempt to make them understandable, because most of the training wasn't. And then got tired of that and came down to KZN again and headed up Smart Exchange, an ICT hub and small business incubator. So
excellent.
Love doing that.
Excellent. So Robin, so in this day and age, that kind of background in IT and in people development and technology and digital, is you're absolutely on the money. You're just the person that we need to be able to help small businesses all around the country. So really excited to have you on board. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. So I just want to kick off straight into let's get straight into it. We're small business owners. We don't waste time with small talk. So I just want to share with you, there was a really interesting question. This is actually a question that has already been posted on Mentor Hotline. And I thought that it was a really nice example just to take through, just to kind of walk through one of these questions and use it in order to get some kind of rich feedback. So it was actually posted by somebody in the education and training field, and specifically in tutoring and skills development to school children. And what she said here is that her business has really been struggling since the beginning. She's had 1 or 2 clients, but lost them and need help in order to restart and rebuild. What sort of advice would you be able to give to this woman, Robin?
I think you need to take stock, firstly, just to really understand what worked and what didn't work in the previous attempt. And then have a look at where you want to go with it. How big do you want to get, or do you want to keep it small? And then start with what you have. If you can tutor at home, do so. If you can't, start looking at partnerships, particularly if you're targeting school children, because schools invariably have, so if you select schools, for example, that offer aftercare facilities, that's a prime one. You use their classrooms, you've now got a captive audience, you can market to the parents, and invariably, you'll probably need to give something back to the school, but it can be a very workable way to start the business. And it really is about starting, giving quality service, so that those children and parents become your messengers and actually market for you.
Yeah, nice. Thanks, Robin. I mean, I think that's such important advice. I was on a chat yesterday with some students from Varsity College, one of the questions that they ask there is, you know, how can I market my business? And really my advice is much like yours, is that the best marketing is a happy client. So really start off by making sure that your first client is happy, you've satisfied their needs, and then ask them to share, you know, ask them to recommend you to other people and build like that. And from my own experience, you can build a multi-million rand business in that way, actually, just using from client to client. So nice advice there. And I also like that suggestion to take stock, you know, take stock and go back and look at what worked and what didn't work. So yeah, maybe just one last thing, Robin. I think that a lot of the times people kind of make the mistake of jumping in to try and solve a business because that's their skill, rather than starting from a market needs perspective. What is your opinion on that?
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. So I'm a great believer in the business model canvas. I think it's extremely useful. You can Google it, you can download the template. And basically what it does is it in one page enables you to look at the 9 key factors that can influence your business. So it forces you to start thinking holistically, but its starting point is with your market. Who is your market? What are their characteristics? Are they willing to pay? I mean, they also have to do a competitor analysis. What is out there? What's the problem you're solving? Who else is solving it? Or what are the workarounds if it's not solving? So, I mean, it really forces you to do the background thinking and research that is critical to getting a business off the ground. Because if there's no need, you're not going to succeed.
Yeah, no, exactly. If there's no market, you haven't got a hope, and there's yeah, that's kind of a basic error that many people make. So lovely. Thanks for that reminder, Robin. So moving on, we had a great question from Mpo. And so Mpo is also from the information technology and telecommunications sector, specifically in software development. And Mpo asked the question, I've recently developed a new software and I'm struggling to work out how to price it. I'm not sure whether it's too high or too low in comparison to my larger competitors. Where do you go with that one, Robin?
For me, that's shouting out for a competitor analysis. He needs to actually get out there and really do the research. What is actually out there that's similar to what you're doing? Who are they selling to? And you'll get a lot of information just by desktop research. And what's their pricing structures, as well as the actual cost of the product. That will then give you a ballpark figure as to what the market is prepared to pay for something. So that would definitely be my starting point.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think costing and pricing is such a critical component of any business. And in actual fact, I often say that, you know, even the big guys like Clicks, you know, even the multinationals, you know, costing and pricing is I think, is an ongoing challenge. It's not something that you just solve and that's the end of it. But certainly understanding, so not only how to price yourself competitively, but really have a good understanding of what the cost is. Because if you know your cost price, it really empowers you to make, you know, to make decisions on whether you can negotiate your pricing or give bulk discounts and things like that. So really developing the tools or finding the tools in order to be able to understand your baseline costs. And I know that's something in our Fetola programs. It's probably our most popular training that we do, is just so that you can understand the costing. Pricing, of course, is also about psychology, isn't it? You know, as small business owners, there's often this thing: I need to be the cheapest. But the thing with cheap is that we don't generally value it. So there's a whole psychology around pricing. Lovely.
That's such an important point. Sorry, that one go. About. So I have worked with businesses that have assumed if they undercut everybody, they will actually gain customers, and it's such a mistake. So that's such a valid point.
Yeah, I mean, pricing, we could have had a whole session just on pricing. I mean, my sense with pricing is you can always go down in price, but you can't go up. And so once you've discounted, it's a slippery slope to nowhere. And often it's better, you know, if you're not able to do it yourself, find a mentor, go onto the mentor hotline to ask a question like that. But my sense is that be very cautious of going to market on price. Because especially as a small business, the chances are you're going to lose any war, any pricing war with a larger organization, you're going to lose just like that. So be careful about pricing. And if you're an entrepreneur out there and these are the kind of challenges that you're sitting with, and we're not able to address your question directly here, please go onto the Mentor Hotline platform. It's very easy to access. As I said last week, it's easier than registering a profile on SARS, and really instantly within 24 hours, you can get the personalized response that you'll need for your business. So please visit the Fetola website and click on Mentor Hotline in order to get the help that you want. Robin, I'm going to jump into the chat now. There's a really great question here saying, how do I start a business with a full-time job? I've begun doing events, but I often don't have the time and currently can't afford to only focus on my business. I love this question. I don't know if you want to jump in with some thoughts on that.
Sure, because I think any business owner, in fact, has had to do this. I mean, most of us, that's how we start. So for me, the big thing was to be very, very organized. And I'll be 100% honest. My kids had set bedtimes. And the reason for that, I worked every night for about 4 or 5 hours to prepare all the things that we needed in order to start our business. So it was in fact, I actually think it took us 6 months because we were both working at the time. And 6 months of preparation, which meant that when we launched, we had everything we needed, from a booking system that we'd written ourselves, the manuals to teach, and so on and so forth. So it really was about organizing our time and making this whole list of things that we needed to do in order to be able to start properly, and then doing it. As simple as that.
Love it, Robin. Yeah, just do it. Isn't that the entrepreneur's mantra? I do think it's a lot of really huge globally successful businesses were started part-time. You know, Mark Shuttleworth, Bill Gates, you know, so many. I mean, it's very often that the big guys started in their garage part-time. So just do it. You know, if you have a full-time job and you want to start something on the side, it's a perfect way to segue into being a full-time entrepreneur. Yes, certainly from what Robin says, is be organized. And these days, there's so many digital tools that allow you to kind of have a presence even when you're not actually present. So yeah, look at things like chatbots. You know, look at digital automation, just simple stuff you can get free off the internet. But yeah, just do it. I'm a real believer in part-time as a kind of nice slipway into a full-time role. So good luck with it. And yeah, put your kids to bed on time. I don't know, I didn't get that one right, Robin, but somehow I managed it. You're obviously better organized than I was. That's lovely. Thanks so much. Yeah, so maybe just one thing also just to remind people is that Mentor Hotline is free, and in fact free until the end of the year. It'll be going on until the end of December, and so you can access up to 3 hours a month free every month until the end of December. So please just jump on and make the most of it. It's certainly a very valuable tool at the moment. Okay, I have another question from Fane Ferguson. What an interesting name, Fane. I've never heard that before. Lovely. It says, hi all. A lot of the mentees post information looking for assistance based on a business plan they've drafted and think they can raise funding without putting a foot in the water. Sounds like you're one of our mentors, Fane. Is there a program in Fetola that teaches the need for these guys to start on a shoestring? Okay, this is my topic, so I'm going to jump in on this one, Robin. One of my team will just put in a link now to an article I just recently wrote about how to start a business with almost no money. And I'm really a lean startup specialist. I've started many businesses in a number of different sectors. And it really is possible to start a business at very low cost. Not with no cost, of course, because these days you kind of at least need a computer and access to the internet. But if you're first starting out a business, my real recommendation is start something that's lean, that isn't going to cost you a lot, because the chances of you getting R500,000 loan if you've had no experience in business are pretty well zero. So start something, as I said to the previous query, started on the side. And service business is a really good business to start. They often just require you and your brain. You can Uber a lot of services, so you can even be in logistics and not own a car these days. You know, you can pretty well outsource everything these days. And so it is possible to start something with a good idea. What you probably need is a good network of clients. So you need to know that there's a market, and yeah, start lean. Don't keep polishing the business plan. A business plan actually is just a dream that you haven't yet implemented. So just get stuck into it. And what you'll find is the more experience that you have and the more of a track record that you can show, particularly in things like showing your financials, being able to show that you've got 2 or 3 years of business activity, then you'll find then when you do start to need money to really scale up, you'll have the expertise and the track record to increase your chances of getting those early stage finance. Is there anything you want to add to that, Robin?
Oh, I'd love to. So if I go back to 1985 when we started, computers were not at that point ubiquitous. So they weren't everywhere, but we believed they would become. We had no money, 2 women with a great idea and absolutely no backers. So what we did was to partner. I call it bartering. We went to the local newspaper and we said, we'll write an article for you, a weekly article on the use of computers, hot topic, because their big theme for that year was education. So we'll educate your users, no cost to you, but you have to advertise us. And we even went so far as to incorporate their name in our company for a year. Free advertising, nice. A little bit of work. We had no money to buy computers, so we then approached Commodore Computers and said, you want to get into a market, we've now lined up the advertising, we'll teach people on your machines, but you give us the machines. That's how we started. So everything was, it was how can we bring value to this partner, but what did we want them to do for us in return? And that's how we got started without... We borrowed 3,000 Rand to start our business.
Excellent. Thanks, Robin. I mean, so it's interesting. I mean, you spoke about partners in your intro, and I know there's people on the platform that will be disagreeing with you because there's a lot of entrepreneurs that kind of have this real thing of wanting to go it alone, and there are certainly ways partners can also be quite tricky. So I kind of like to look at the word collaborator rather than partner, because you know, as soon as you get into a partnership, it's kind of a formal arrangement, and unless it's set up right, you can get yourself into trouble. So yeah, partnering it's a little bit like marriage, you know, it's not all upside. But yeah, certainly I think for a small business that wants to get ahead fast, collaborating with other people, saying, you know, the 2 of us together can get our heads up above the water much quicker. And that's a really good idea. That's a really good way to get to market. Maybe a good way to get your business big enough that it could get into bigger markets. So yeah, but so partnering, I'm actually surprised we haven't had a few comments about partnering, but maybe that's still going to come. Those detractors, you know, there's always going to be people with a different opinion, which of course is fantastic. All right, great. So I'm going to take another one here, Robin, also in IT, technology and communications. And it's somebody here who's developed a new app. And the question is this app idea worth developing? It's basically, I don't want to give your whole idea away. Here's Naomi, so I'm going to just do it in a little bit cryptic form. And so Naomi has got a good idea to create a kind of organizing, a family organizing app, something that would help families to get themselves organized. It sounds just like your kind of thing, Robin. It's like go to bed and maybe it buzzes the kids when they have to get off to bed. You're just wondering your thoughts on how do you go about marketing or developing an app when you've got a good idea? Where would you go with this?
I think the most important thing is you need to establish that there's a need for your product, because once again, if you cannot get people to buy what it is you're selling, you don't have a business.
Yeah.
So the way I would go about that is standard customer validation. Make a list of the value adds that your app will bring, and then go and do a survey. Actually ask. Get groups of people. I mean, you obviously know your target market. You need to define it carefully, and then go and talk to people and ask them, would they use it? But more importantly, would they be prepared to pay for it? And if not, what's your business model of how you're going to earn income?
Yeah, that's such an important one. There's two things there, Robin. I want to just talk about understanding market needs. I think that we often overcomplicate it. So I would think in this situation where it's an app, a family management app, it's simple, ask your friends. I think that as entrepreneurs, we often are too afraid to share ideas. We don't want people to steal them, or we're afraid that people will say it's a silly idea. But the thing is, you have to develop the courage to actually just simply ask people. So if you've got an idea for an app, Siobhan, go to your friends and say, listen, do you think this is a good idea? And then ask to speak to their friends and do a bit of a survey like that, and maybe take a record of it. So do it informally, but take notes so that you can say 5 out of 6 families thought it was a good idea. So so market research doesn't have to be complicated. It's just about asking questions. And then the second point, Robin, is absolutely, there's that classic saying, you ask, is there a market? But it's really, is there viability in that market? And that is the question, will you pay for it? And maybe on the education front, we often get businesses that are trying to sell education into impoverished communities. And whilst there's certainly a need that people in kind of impoverished communities need education, the fact is that if they can't pay for it, it's not actually a market. And then one has to really differentiate that, because without a market that's going to pay for your product, you don't actually have a business. So important points there that you've raised. Thanks. So maybe let's just move on then, Robin. There was also a great question from the food and agri-processing sector. And I think this is a really exciting sector for new businesses to be in, because we all have to eat, right? No matter where the economy is going and what's happening globally, we all have to eat. So I do think food and agri-processing is a really dynamic sector. If you're looking to start up in that sector, definitely a good space. This is somebody specifically in spices and herbs, and is asking the question, how do you build a brand and social media presence as a startup? Any thoughts on that, Robin?
Well, two different things. Okay, so branding as a small business, you're not going to have the funds to be able to do what the big guys can. But you are your best brand ambassador, and so are your happy clients. So it's about really utilizing yourself, making sure that you've got your elevator pitch absolutely down, and really that it's impactful. It's about then using your circle of your network, existing network, and in turn getting them to promote your business. Digital marketing on the other side is completely different. I think what a lot of small businesses don't realize is the amount of work they need to do before they even embark on digital marketing. And by that, I mean, you really, really have to define your markets down to segments, characteristics. So what are the key characteristics that a digital marketer could then use to attract people? You've got to make sure your website is really up to par, and that it's been set up properly to facilitate sales, online sales or inquiries, whatever, that you've got tracking in place. And you need a budget. You have to boost posts.
Oh, so I'm a startup. I ain't got no money. Okay.
So then you have to use what's available. That's obviously Facebook. Oh,
nice.
And you've obviously LinkedIn. So that's then up to you to start pushing. Again, you're now your brand ambassador. You're your digital marketer until you've got the money to take it further.
Nice. Yeah, thanks, Rob. And I'm going to add to that. Obviously, if you're a startup and you're a kind of one-man startup, you are it. And so you are the resource. And yes, it's your time. It's your time and energy on the social media building those, building that awareness. But I want to speak to something a little bit different. So specifically, you starting up a new business. It's really about trust. So the first thing that you have to do as a new business owner is you have to build trust, and realizing that you're coming from zero, people don't know you. So those early engagements are so important. It could be with a friend, it could be with a family member. Just make sure that you do a really good job in the first place, and then ask that first client to write a referral for you, and then use that referral in order to showcase the good results that you've had. That's free. So doing a good job is what you should be doing. Getting a referral from your client is free, and yet it's actually worth it. It's priceless. And so one of the other things that you can do, and I know we had a really dynamic entrepreneur in Mpumalanga in the tourism sector, and he had a great thing that every time he took a client, he was in the safari business. And so every time he took clients out in safari, he'd make sure that they took a selfie with him and posted it on their Facebook, and he just asked them to tag him. And so for nothing, he built up a really good profile, not just of visibility on social media, but of trusted clients. And there's nothing more valuable than somebody else saying that you're amazing at what you do. I can say that I'm good at what I do, and you won't really believe me. But if Robin says that I'm amazing, it has so much more gravitas. So that's really the way, on a zero budget, you can build a profile, because you can get other people to say that you're great. And that's the nice thing about social media, is that it costs you nothing, just to cost you the time to ask the people, and then for you to actually maybe to follow up and share those posts. So that's what I would recommend. So we got some really nice questions coming in. I'm just seeing one's popped up already. I think I've lost it. But from Soraya, let's just go for Soraya. So our business she says, Soraya Williams, thanks for your question, Soraya. Our business has been providing custom-made dress services. And after COVID, we pivoted into a small CMT and are now wanting to access the clothing retail market with new products. How do we compete and get in with the bigger manufacturers and designers that are already supplying? Any thoughts on that, Robin?
I think if you want to get in to working with the bigger guys, what you need to do is have a look at what enterprise development programs they have. Most of them have supplier development programs. What's the gap? What's the need? And actually go and see them. Because you have to be bringing some value to them. Otherwise, they're not really going to work with you. And even if that value is just getting them points on their BEE side, that's good enough. That would be my starting point.
So I would add to that, Robin, and I would maybe just give a little word of caution to Soraya and other businesses in that field, is just be cautious that moving into the big time is actually the right thing for you. Because it's not easy, as soon as you move into those big suppliers, the bigger you go, the bigger the cost of any failures or mistakes. And often the margins on those very big volumes is much, much lower than in the work that you're doing at the moment. So you're going to increase your overheads, you're going to increase your risk, and you're going to reduce your margins. The chances are they're going to start paying you 30, 60, 90, 180 days if you don't negotiate hard. And so just be very cautious of it. That'd be the first thing. And the second thing is, what I would suggest you do is, because very often what happens is that the large companies need big volumes. And the chances are, if you've gone from being a small provider, you're not going to be able to scale quickly enough for them. And so that might also be an opportunity to look around and create some sort of a collaboration where maybe 2, 3, or 4 of your CMTs actually share out in order for you to be able to be able to supply at that kind of quantity. But just be cautious. Just be cautious. Take your time moving up into the big time, because often that dream order that you've got can turn very quickly into being a nightmare. So yeah, but good luck with it, and I hope that you succeed, and please keep me posted. I'll be interested to hear your journey. Fabulous.
Sorry, Kathy, one more
Yeah.
thing on that one. I know here in KZN, I'm not sure about in the other provinces, but they've actually created clusters. So there is actually a clothing and fashion cluster. I would definitely go and see them, just to find out what assistance they offer, what networks are available. I think it will help you make better decisions.
Cool, that's nice. Thanks very much for that. Yeah, I mean, I think that wherever we can go for wise advice is certainly essential. You know, as a leader of a business, there are so many moving parts, and for us to know everything about everything is just an impossibility. So make sure that you're moving in the right circles that can assist you. Nice comment there. So there's one here from. There's one also on the loop here. As a leader of a small business, how can you build high-performing teams, especially during COVID? Any thoughts on that, Robin?
Well, a high-performing team, for me, means that people really do need to understand what it is you want them to do. And I mean, it's a whole process. Ideally, you've got to have a strategy for growth. That strategy, in turn, it comes down to objectives. Each team will then take that, move it into tasks. But there's clarity on what people need to do, why they're doing it, how it needs to be done. So it's actually quite a bit of work that needs to be put in place. And then it's about maintaining the motivation. So you need, depending on how big you are, if you're the only person, then everyone's relying on you to motivate. And that means tracking. It's about not just telling people what's not working. It's particularly important to tell them what is working. I mean, we're all human. We like to know that what we're doing has been heard, seen, and recognized. And then we can take the criticism easier.
Fabulous. Thanks, Robin. I'm going to add to that. So certainly it's about sharing the vision. So it's about having a clear vision. And again, if you're talking startup or early stage, work on your vision so that it's absolutely crystal clear for you, so that you understand it and you believe in it, and then find ways to articulate that for other people. So in my own case, I think for the first 2 years, I probably looked at my vision statement, if not every day, certainly 2-3 times a week. And I would constantly tweak it until it really resonated with me. And now it's really this kind of abiding, this kind of motivation for the whole team. And so I think in any situation, any tricky situation, and COVID is just one of them, when there's lots of anxiety, there's lots of change around, it's about being present. So you need to be seen as the leader, you need to be seen to be calm and in control, and you need to inspire confidence, number one. Secondly, you need to remind people why you're here. Why are you here? What's the purpose? What's the vision of the business? And help each individual employee to link what is their personal purpose with what is the purpose of the business. So make them feel special, and keep them close. So communication, I have the saying, I think communication is the biggest challenge in the world today. And it's something we've never completed. If we think we've communicated, we haven't yet communicated enough. So really being there for people, but keeping calm and keeping people feeling seen, heard, loved, and trusted.
And you know what worked? What I found worked in my businesses was we used to start the day off with a cup of coffee in my office, especially in the early stages. And it just gave us an opportunity to chat briefly and then to focus. Everybody knew what it is, the major areas they needed to focus on. And we had a great team. Yeah, it really worked.
Yeah, it's certainly. I mean, Robin, that's the thing, is that then you go into Zoom meetings, and what I found is, so what we did in Fetola is that we started off by meeting every single day. Because of this high anxiety and kind of having to jump the tram lines into a totally new way of working. and then reduce that back 3 times a week. Then it was twice a week. And now we actually meet briefly on a Monday and then for a longer meeting on a Friday. But I have to say, I'm so relieved that we're back in real time and we're able to meet actually in the same room, because I find personally the inspiration I get from meeting with my team, allowing my team to all of them to speak up. They all have an opportunity to speak about what's going on for them in their lives, and to feel an active part of the business. And so moving away, Zoom has been great, but I'm so relieved to get back into real time. There's just nothing to compare. So we're a very team-based company, so it's very important for us. So. Cool. We got another question coming in. I'm a director. It says from Sianda. Thank you, Sianda Lugomo. I'm director of a fairly new business, which is incorporating social media, using social media integration in building first self-sustaining social economy over time. I'm afraid, Sianda, I don't actually understand what that question is trying to ask me. Maybe you just want to re-articulate and we'll do our best to handle it. In the meantime, I'm just going to go on to one of these, the questions that we have here. And it's actually from Kotso Niezi in Gauteng in the agriculture sector. And Kotso would like to start farming in meat production, mainly poultry, cattle, rabbit, turkey, and duck farming. How should I start? So Robin, I'm going to jump in on this one. I have an agriculture background. And so Kotso, as you know, starting up an industry like that is a highly capital intensive business. The reality is that unless you are already sitting with land and livestock, the chances of you getting money to invest in the first instance are very, very low. And so what I would suggest, unless forgive me if your circumstances are different, but if you're somebody that has now an idea and you just want to, you just starting from the idea stage, I would look to start something that is very low cost. So in your case, you mentioned ducks, chickens, rabbits, or whatever. It is possible to start with a fairly low budget with those small livestock. And then I would just grow organically, learn how to do it, learn how to build the ability to grow livestock into the ability to build a business. Be sure to keep records of what you do, financial records. And then once you've got a year or two experience and track record, and you've built up at least a little bit of a livestock in the smaller animals, you will then be able to expand into larger scale. But I just want to say again, it's not easy to get early startup finance. It isn't easy anywhere in the world. It's not just a South African thing. It's a problem all over the world. And the reality is that's because money wants to invest in something that is low risk. And farming is the opposite of low risk. It's a high risk industry, and it's a highly capital intensive industry. So you're going to have to start out small and grow one rabbit at a time. And I'm sure you'll be able to do it. So if it's your dream, I'm sure you'll put the actions in place to make the dream come true. And again, what you may find is that you can partner with somebody. Maybe there's somebody you know who has land, and you could create some sort of collaboration agreement with them that you could rent the land, or maybe you could rent some old chicken houses in order to start like that. So yeah, so just look at trying to do it on a low cost model, and I'm sure that you'll succeed. It may take hard work and some time, but if it's your passion, you're going to love it, and it's not going to feel like a hard journey. Yeah, anything that you wanted to add on that, Robin?
The only other thing to have a look at is what government assistance programs exist. So once you've established the business and you're producing goods, there's a RACET program, R-A-S-E-T, and what they do is they buy produce from emerging farmers, and so it's used to feed hospitals, prisons, school feeding schemes, and it's pretty much it's usually run by a chamber of commerce, but worth inquiring to see if there's one in your area and what you need to do in order to be a part of it, because that can at least provide you with a market.
Great. I didn't know about that. Thanks, Robin. That's really interesting. So RACET, R-A-S-E-T. Is that right? They can just Google that?
S-E-T.
Fantastic. Great, excellent. Good luck with that. Yeah,
Yes,
Kotso,
okay.
there you go. Maybe that's the thing that's going to unlock your future. That's fantastic. All right, so Siyanda just came back with a bit more detail on his question, and so he's saying that he's a business and his a social campaign was launched last year, and he now broadcasts to about 100,000 social media users, and he's wondering about how he can grow his audience. As the long-term vision is obviously to be much bigger than that. So, I mean, I think I'm going to go back on what we said previously, and that is about trust. You know, the important thing in the world these days, and it doesn't matter whether you're talking advertising or social media, it's all about trust and authenticity. And so you need to look at the product that you're selling, you need to look at the brand that you're building, and you need to find ways in order to build trust with your audience. And that means doing what you say you're going to do and being really clear and open and honest with them. I don't know if you want to add to that, Robin.
Well, I think Eugenie made a point earlier in the chat. You call it trust, but trust is created by adding value. And that's really what you've got to look at. If you're adding good value, what you have to do now is how do you get these 100,000 people that you've got to all in turn speak to 2 more people? So what value are you adding that's going to make them actually talk about you?
I love it. I love it, Robin. Yeah, that's really great. And maybe incentivizing that. So that's what also competitions are really good for that. But yes, for me, the real thing is just be authentic. Exactly. Yeah, be very careful with your wording and your promises, and always deliver on your promises, because it takes a lifetime to build up a reputation and it takes 30 seconds to destroy it. So yeah, just be really cautious that you do what you say you're going to do. Okay, great. And I see somebody's really one of my team has posted the link to Rasset in the chat, which is fantastic. So I've learned something today. That's excellent. Thanks, thanks, Robin. Okay, we're just about out of time, so I don't know if anybody's got a burning question. Quickly pop it in the chat, and we'll try and deal with that. But what I do want to get onto, yeah, there was one. Yeah, I think that maybe I want to just speak then. To this last question here. There was somebody from a nonprofit. So we don't generally deal in nonprofits, although we have a long history in Fetola of working with nonprofits. And it's from Grace Sibanda in Gauteng. And she's saying she runs a nonprofit, and it's been quite a minefield getting a team together to be effective. And I'd like guidance on how to work with, train, and lead people in a nonprofit space so that we can consistently grow. So I don't know if you have some thoughts on that just in the last 2 minutes there, Robin.
Well, to be absolutely honest, having run my own business, worked in corporates, worked in a nonprofit, I think managing a team is exactly the same. So the environment you're in doesn't impact on the principles of team management. Yeah. And really it is about being very clear what you want people to achieve, making sure that they've got the tools and resources to actually do that, and then working with them and communicating. I mean, the point that you made is absolutely vital. If you're talking to people on a regular basis, just to get a quick snapshot, are you on track, any issues, and if there are issues, you deal with them quickly before they become really big problems.
Yeah, nice. Thanks. I kind of want to add, so my mantra maybe is the 3 R's. So respect, recognition, and reward. Respect is exactly that. So respecting the individuals in your team, respecting their opinion, asking for their opinion, and acting in a respectful way always to people. Recognition is really this acknowledging people when they've done a good work and publicly acknowledging it, making sure that, yeah, so that they're seen and heard. And the last one is reward. And often we say, you know, I'm an NPO and I can't afford to pay people a lot of money, or I'm a small business and I can't afford to pay people a lot of money. It's understanding that that reward is not just about financial. And so if you hire the right people who are motivated to work on the vision that your NPO is working on, so whether it's education or health or small business growth, if you've got the right people in and they're passionate about it and you are that route for them to kind of unleash their passion, then that is the reward that they're seeking, and you can build a really good team like that. Yeah, maybe the last thing is, people, for me, people are the absolute blessing of working in a business. It can also be difficult. It's not leading a team is never simple, but it is probably the most rewarding part of being a business leader. So that's all we have time for, folks. I just wanted to say thank you so much for Robin for joining. Thanks for your expertise and your experience. I think that I think a lot of the advice that you've given is really valuable. I hope that the people that ask the questions feel as though they've got what they needed. And I just again want to remind you all, please, if you have any questions like this, if we didn't get to your questions, I see there's some that we've missed now, I'm so sorry. Please post this question on the Mentor Hotline. Just go on to the Fetola website, fetola.coza, look for the Mentor Hotline tag, and just go in there, make your profile, post your question, and within 24 hours, you'll get the response that you need that's personalized to your particular business. Thank you so much for joining, Robin. Thank you so much for everybody out there joining. I've had fun. I hope you've had fun, and I hope it's been really of value. I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much. Cheerio now.
Thank you. Bye.